Good morning, everyone, and I would like to start by saying I hope you've all had a phenomenal start to your day so far. So what I'd like to do with the short time I've got with you is take you on a little bit of a journey through a section of my life where I nearly lost that very thing, life. But before we step into my world, I'd like to start by introducing myself properly. So, I'm Anthony Bennett. I've lived in London my whole life. I come from quite a big family. I've got 4 sisters, 2 brothers, and a little fun fact, we've got a really famous uncle, and I'm sure 100% of you guys would know who my uncle is. So here's a clue. He was born in America. He's a music producer. He's worked with Jay-Z, Justin Timberlake, Gwen Stefani, and in the year 2014, he had a hit single that literally made the whole world happy. My uncle, Mr. Pharrell Williams. I'm actually joking, he's not really my uncle, but how cool would that be? Anyway, less of Pharrell, more into my story. So my journey, it started in 2006. I went on a school trip to Disneyland Paris, and it was the best school trip ever. Why? Because it was me, my friends, abroad, and no parents. It was having a whale of a time. And on the 3rd day of the school trip, I started to feel a bit weird. Weird in the sense that I couldn't really understand what people were saying. When we was deciding whether to go on some more rides or get something to eat, I couldn't digest and make sense of what people were saying. So I thought to myself, am I dehydrated? So I tried to drink more water. Then I thought, is this a hangover? Not to say that we snuck alcohol on the trip, because obviously that wasn't allowed, but I just didn't know what it was, so I tried to push it to the back of my mind. We were then on the coach, heading back home in England, when all of a sudden the coach started to swerve across all lanes. So children were flying around the coach. We all thought we were going to crash. And the coach driver swerved onto the hard shoulder, slammed on the brakes. We all went flying forward. And then he just ran off the coach. So we ran to the window to see where he went. And we saw him just on the verge. And he started to throw up everywhere. A really thick, lumpy vomit. No, that's early, so I'm not going to go into details. But he started to throw up. So we had to have another coach driver drive out to come and see us and to drive us back to school. But we thought nothing of it. He's a bit poorly. It is what it is. The next day, I woke up and I had a headache. I had no energy. I felt really clammy. But if you guys have got parents like my parents and it's a school day, you are going to school. So I dragged myself to school, and I was actually first in lesson. A couple minutes passed and a few of my friends showed up, about 3 of us in total, and we was all talking about how great the school trip was. And then we got onto the subject of how ill we all felt. And 20 minutes flew by, and we noticed that no one else showed up to lesson. Teacher wasn't there, no other students were there, just the 3 of us. So we thought, what the hell's going on? But again, we were 16 at the time, so we thought, yes, we get to go home. So we went home. The next day was a Saturday. I woke up, I felt even worse. Walked downstairs, I saw my mum. My mum said, hi Anthony, how are you feeling today? And I said to my mum, yeah, there's frogs in the garden jumping on jelly. If you look left, there's Batman underneath a log. So my mum looked at me like, what did you just say? So I tried to speak again. I couldn't make sense of anything I was saying. Anything that came to my mind, I'd just blurt it out, I'd stutter, and I'd just be murmuring stuff. So first thing my mum thought, oh my God, my son's taking drugs. I never thought I'd see the day. How could you do this? And then she was looking around for cameras. She thought I was playing a prank on her, but she just didn't know what was going on. So she kept an eye on me, and she noticed that I was walking upstairs, downstairs, turning around, sitting down, staring at a wall, just talking gibberish. So she sat me down and said, what is going on? The only word I can get out was the word hurts. And I started to hit my chest saying, hurts, hurts. So then she noticed that all of my toes were blue, and I was finding it hard to breathe. So she called my dad. My dad came, and he saw the state I was in. He said, we need to take you to the hospital quick. So he had to literally lift me over his shoulders, run out to the car, put me in the car, and drove me to our local hospital. The hospital, they put me through to an emergency side room. I remember being in the bed, my dad sitting next to me, just doing a crossword, you know what dads do. And a doctor came in with my x-ray. And I'm sure you've all seen the x-ray. What color are your bones? White. What color are your lungs? Black. In my x-ray, everything was just white and cloudy. My lungs were full of infection. So the doctor left the room, came back with another doctor. They were talking. He left the room, came back with another doctor. So my dad peeped over the paper, thought, you know what, they're the experts, we'll leave them to it. And he said within a space of about 5 minutes, there were 8 doctors standing in a circle, all discussing my x-ray and the next steps. So my dad thought he'd put down a paper and ask that big question, what's going on? And they said, Mr. Bennett, your son's extremely ill and his only chance of survival, the big S word, is if we can find him a life support machine called ECMO. And in 2006, there was 4 hospitals in the UK that had this machine. Luckily for me, Great Ormond Street had the last available machine. So I was transferred to Great Ormond Street, blue lights all the way. When I arrived at Great Ormond Street, they still didn't know what I had, so they were doing loads of tests. I was in this state when I arrived. I had machines all around my bed. People that came into the room had to wear gloves, masks, gowns, my friends and family, and it was tough times. Every step forward I was taking 5 steps back, and my family kept getting called into what they called the interview room or the meeting room, where you're given the updates. And every time my family went into that room, it was always bad news. And it got to the point where my mum could not step inside that room. They had to find a different room to take my mum into to tell her the bad news. I was diagnosed with 3 viral infections, influenza B+, staphylococcus, and strep pneumonia. On top of that, I was given about 10% chance of survival. On top of that, my white blood cells went to 0, so it was harder for my body to fight infections. On top of that, whilst I was in a coma, I had a seizure, which could have left me brain dead, brain damaged. They didn't know. They had to keep monitoring my brain activity. And if that wasn't enough, during my stay, I had to be resuscitated and brought back to life 12 times. So if we take a step back and think about all the opportunities where things were able to go wrong, there was a long, long list. So I've written down a few. 1, I was very, very high. What I mean by that is I was on a lot of drugs, a lot of strong drugs. I'm not one to promote drugs, but if you ever get a chance to try morphine, it's all right, you know. It's all right. Number 2, there's a huge amount of people treating me. It wasn't just one-on-one that I was getting. There was a massive team involved. It had to be very organized and very structured. Number 3, I was moved across 3 wards, from intensive care to PICU to Badger ward. And this was all within a space of 7 weeks. So the window of opportunity of things to go wrong was quite big. Luckily, we had a great risk manager who was my mum. She stayed with me throughout my whole journey. She came first thing in the morning, stayed till 11 o'clock at night, and then the hospital provided her and my family with accommodation just down the road so they could stay close to me during these tough times. I noticed how ill I was from the people that came up to visit me. Because usually when you're in hospital, you know, your mum comes up, your dad, brothers and sisters, maybe your grandma or your auntie. But I was getting long-distance relatives traveling far to come and see me, and I thought that was a bit weird. And then one day I remember waking up and I had 3 of my exes at the bottom of my bed. And I was high as well, so it was weird. So what happened was, my dad done something you should never ever do to a 16-year-old boy. Whilst I was in a coma, he went through my phone and he texted everyone. From A to Z, everyone. So I was getting some people that I did not want to come and visit me, coming to visit me. And there was a point I remember when I had a tracheostomy, so I was breathing through my throat, and I had to have physio. So they'd pour saline, salty water down into my tube, tell me to take a deep breath, and as I breathe out, they'd rattle my body, so it swishes around in my lungs. Then they'd put a small suction tube down my trachea, and I'd breathe out, and all this gunk would come out, and it would clear my lungs. During this, I had a few lumps on my lungs. They didn't know what it was, so they said they'll keep an eye on it. And one of the lumps went to go up the tube, but the lump was about that big, and the tube was about that small. So it ended up blocking half of my breathing tube. So I was finding it incredibly hard to breathe. And bearing in mind, I barely had any energy. So me just trying to breathe alone, I was struggling. My machine started to beep, more doctors and nurses started to flood the room, my mum was around me, I started to panic. And it got to the point where I literally wanted to give up. And I remember saying to my mum, I just want to die. I've fought all I can. You know, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and I just want to be at peace. I can't go anymore. And I remember I had one thought, and it changed everything and put me back on my path. And I thought to myself, if I was to just die and just give up, let's call it a day, I would never, ever get a chance to hear another Eminem album. I was, and still am, a massive Eminem fan. He's got an album coming out in a couple of weeks, so make sure you help and support. Thanks. And I started to think about the future and all the things that I wanted to do, I think I wanted to achieve. I started thinking about my Lamborghini, my mansion I was going to get, all the food that I haven't tried, all the places around the world I haven't seen, that are still young. And I thought to myself, no, I need to stay strong and I need to get myself through this. So I started my recovery, which is also the name of an Eminem album. With this, I had to learn everything from scratch. I had to learn how to squeeze a sponge ball, how to touch my nose with my finger, how to sit up without flopping over. I had to learn how to stand again with support from some of the doctors and nurses, how to take my first steps again, where I'd be able to walk from about here to here, and my heart would be bouncing out of my chest. So I'd have to sit down or go to sleep and then try again, bit by bit. But then it got to the point where the doctor came in and said, Mr. Bennett, we've done all we can for you. It's your time to go now. It's up to you now to build your strength and to become the Anthony that you want to become. Do you have any questions? And I said, yeah, how ill was I? And they said, you know, it was touch and go. But I didn't quite understand what they were saying. I was like, touch what and go where? And so she said, no, we nearly lost you a few times. Lost me? I've been in this bed the whole time. You've seen me day to day. And then my mum and the doctor had like a little interaction. I thought, what's going on? What do you mean? And she said, no, you died a few times. And I was like, whoa, how many times? Right, we'll take you down to intensive care. You can speak with the team, and they'll be able to answer all the questions you have. So I was wheeled down to ICU, and I said my thank yous to everyone. And they said, Mr. Bennett, I heard you got a question. I said, yeah, I heard that I died. I just wanted to know how many times I've died. Oh, you want to take it there? Hey, you want us to take it there, guys? Right, so let's do this. I remember giving you the shockers twice. Paul, 3 times over here, mate. 3, that's 5. Susan's on a break, but she definitely gave you that adrenaline injection. I remember that. 6. I was at, yep, 2 times over here. And people were just throwing in their numbers. And they got to 12. They said, some people's on holiday, some people aren't here today. It could be more, but let's just call it 12. It's a nice round number. So in my mind, I thought to myself, 50 Cent got shot 9 times. I've died 12 times. I can't wait to go back to school and tell everyone about this. And it was a massive joke to me. And then people, when we left, people usually ask me the question, how has my life changed since I went through what I went through? And I can explain that from leaving hospital, getting in a cab, and that cab ride home with my mum. My life changed during that period. Because what I saw when I looked out the window, I saw this. I saw a woman, she was pushing her buggy, she stopped, picked up her baby and started playing with the baby. And the baby started doing the whole goo goo gaga, waving around, and they were having a real good time. But what I saw, I didn't see a mum playing with her daughter. I saw a little baby that's brand new to the world, doesn't really understand anything, and a full-grown woman who kind of understands the patterns of life and what it's about. But they were able to communicate to each other on the same level, and that level was love. They were just showing each other love, and they both understood that. And by me just seeing that, I felt what they were enjoying, and it made me feel really nice inside. So to summarize how it's changed my life, I feel the world a little bit more. Every conversation I have, everything I see, I'm just amazed by life because I understand that life is just a temporary experience. It starts, you go along, and it comes to an end. So whilst I'm in this experience, I want to have fun. You know, I want to try and help people to enjoy their lives as well. And that's just in my nature. I just really enjoy being alive. Got back home, and I was still too weak to climb the stairs, so my dad helped me get up the stairs, opened my bedroom door, and my whole family was in my room. And everyone was cheering, hey, Ant's home, Ant's home. We was all hugging each other. And I noticed that my walls were yellow. So I was like, oh, what's going on? Ah, it made sense. When I was in hospital, my dad came to see me, and he said, son, what's your favorite color? I said, yellow, why? No reason. I thought, okay. The next day he came in, and you know B&Q, they got the color sheets. He had about 50 different yellows, and he said, but what one? I was like, that one, why? No reason. And what it was, the doctors and nurses, they told my family, you're all going through something. It's not just me being a patient, you're all going on this journey. And if you separate, you're going to go on a downward spiral and be in your head too much. You need to work together as a team whilst I'm in hospital and do it for Anthony. So they redecorated my room, they all helped together, painting, got me a new bed, little TV, and they put it together, ready for me when I got back home. And when we were celebrating, I noticed that my dad just vanished. So I said to my mum, where's Dad gone? And she goes, oh, don't know, let's go and find him. We went into the next room, and sure enough, he was there in the back corner, just staring out the window. And when he turned around, that was a moment it changed me, because that was the first time I've ever seen my dad cry. You know, if you've seen my dad, he's a big guy, you know, 2 gold teeth, scars, he's hard. But he was really, really crying. His cheeks were soaking wet and he's doing the whole... And my mum said to him, "Why are you crying?" And he just said, "I'm just so happy that I've got my son back." And when he said that, that's when something happened inside my head. And I thought to myself, whoa, I actually nearly died. I nearly didn't exist anymore. So I started to think about everyone that was involved in helping me get my life back. And the list was humongous. It went into the hundreds. Just to name a few: the doctors, the nurses, surgeons, nutritionists, play specialists, the cleaners. What I noticed was every single person had a superpower which they lent to the team to help me climb to the top and turn on that light bulb of life. Everyone had a key role to play. From the cleaners, they came twice a day just to clean around my bed to make sure there was no bacteria, because I was so ill that bacteria could have killed me. So thanks to the cleaners, I'm alive today. Thanks to the surgeon, I went through all his years of studying and all his training, dedicated his life to being a surgeon, because when you're a surgeon, you have no days off. You can spend Christmas with your family and get that phone call that you need to go. That's life for a surgeon. So I'm thankful for every single person that played a role. I then got a phone call. It was Great Ormond Street. They said, "Hi Anthony, would you like to share your story with Morgan Stanley?" I said, absolutely, not knowing who Morgan Stanley was. I didn't know Morgan Stanley was a big investment banking firm. I thought Morgan Stanley was Morgan and Stanley. So I said, "Is anyone else going to be there? Was it just Morgan and Stanley?" And they said, "Yeah, it's a charity event. There's going to be about 400 people there." I was like, okay. So long story short, that event, it went down really, really well, and I got a buzz at the end, and it made me feel good. So I said to Great Ormond Street, if there's any more opportunities, I'd like to help, and I want to build my confidence. Got another phone call. "Hi Anthony, how are you?" "I'm fine, how are you?" "Superb. Would you like to help us win one of the biggest partnerships we've ever had? It's to a company called Whitbread, and it's worth £7.5 million. Whitbread, you say? Well, are they a bakery? Do they make bread? No, they own big brands like Costa, Premier Inn, and a few others. So I said, absolutely. So we went to the head office, shared the story, and the partnership was won. And 2 of the exec directors came up to me and said, "We want you to join us at Whitbread and help us raise £7.5 million. What, me? What, just ant from the hood? Barely know how to write an email. But they trusted me and they believed in me. So I went on a 4-year journey and I became the face of this charity partnership. And I got to travel around the whole UK, from Edinburgh, Manchester, Liverpool, Northern Ireland, inspiring and motivating people to get on board this charity partnership. And what I saw was amazing. I saw teams working at its finest. I saw people overcome big challenges for themselves, cycling from one side of the country to another. I saw couch potatoes doing a half marathon. I saw people working together as a team, organising tournaments, having fun. And if you can see, there's a general theme there. People are having fun with people that they like being around, creating memories that will last a very long time, and at the same time, they're raising some money that's going towards helping to save children's lives. Everyone's having fun, apart from the gent down at the bottom left. He was not having fun. He decided to get his legs waxed for charity, and he had the most hairiest legs known to man. So hats off to Paul for doing that. But we never lost focus on the why we were doing what we were doing. And that was to help raise money, and that money was going towards a brand new wing at Great Ormond Street, helping to treat 20% more patients. Within 4 years of the 5-year partnership, we raised £7.5 million and then went on to raise £10 million. So it's a really proud moment for everyone that was involved. My journey now, I've left Whitbread and I've started up Anthony Inspires. So I now go around and I speak to teams all over the UK and hopefully the world by next year, from the younger generation, millennials, talking about the power of teamwork, overcoming adversity, to pretty functions just like this with beautiful people like yourselves. And I really enjoy media. I like being creative and making it visually exciting for people to watch. So you may see me around with my camera vlogging. I enjoy vlogging now, so I'm starting to inspire more people and a wider audience. And on top of that, I decided to write a book, My Full Journey. But bearing in mind, I've got this thing called dyslexia, so that means that writing is not my strongest point. what I've learned in my journey is there's no excuses. I told myself, you know how to write a sentence, right? Yeah. You know how to write 2 sentences, right? Yeah. You're an author, you could write a book. So now I'm one chapter away from my first draft, and I'm going to start looking into publishing, just to prove to myself and to inspire other people that you can do anything you put your mind to. Just got to give yourself the time. So I want to end by saying, first of all, thank you for everyone, for listening, and thank you for everything you're doing, leading your teams. You're in an exciting industry where you get to help people, and it's a fulfilling job. So present your best self to the world and share your superpower with pride, because it could be the reason that someone gets a chance to see tomorrow. One thing that I did forget to say in the story is how I got ill in the first place, and I think they've narrowed it down to the coach and the air conditioning, because we were all in that confined space, we all breathed in that air, and we all got ill. Everyone else was fine, had a bad case of flu for the week. The coach driver, he survived, and I just took the short straw and really went for it. But it was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So thank you.